Ready Player One is a very interesting book full of 80s pop culture references and a social issue that, as far as I'm aware, isn't talked about that much, which is why I am talking about it today. But first, if you're not familiar with the world of Ready Player One yet, let's familiarize you with it so you understand some of the key elements of the novel. This book takes place in the year 2045, but let's go back a bit to the year 2012 when James Halliday and his buddy Ogden Morrow created this amazing new VR MMO video game called The Oasis, which costs only a quarter, meaning just about anyone could get immersed in this virtual world where you can do anything, including, but not limited to, owning a DeLorean with Kit from Knight Rider, Ghostbusters logos, and a bunch of other nerdy stuff. Now, let's talk about the actual issue. The issue that we will be talking about today is escapism, which is the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. So, for this book's purposes, it would be VR, video games, and the 80s. So, when and how is this issue presented? Well, it's presented pretty early when Wade talks about how terrible the world is and how amazing the Oasis is. But a better example is when Wade talks about his computer later on in the book, when he refers to his computer as an elaborate contraption for deceiving my senses to allow me to live in a world that didn't exist. Each component was a bar in the cell where I had willingly imprisoned myself. When he finally realizes that he has locked himself away from society and his life had been ruined by an expensive piece of tech that allowed him to be in an amazing world to let him forget about how awful reality is. The issue is resolved at the end of the novel when Wade finally decides that he should probably get back to the real world more often, after he wins the contest, which is the main plot point of the book. I forgot to mention that didn't seem important at the time. Which I think is a great way to end this novel. He spent years of his life playing video games so he could try to win a contest, and when he does, he doesn't feel like playing anymore. Which I interpret this as him feeling as if the only reason he was still playing the games was to try to win a contest, and when he did, he just felt like there was no point in playing anymore. But hey, that's just a theory. A book theory. For my real-life example of escapism, I don't have to go very far. I just have to look at myself and the people watching this. We all have a way to escape reality for a while, whether it's through books, movies, or video games. Sure, the escapism shown in this book is hopefully more extreme than most of you watching this, but we all partake in a little escapism every now and then. Which brings us to our final moments together in this video. First, I have to say that video games are great, whether you're playing Pong, or ruining friendships with blue shells. Although spending 600 plus hours in the world of Skyrim is pretty awesome, you probably shouldn't play too much, because then it might become an addiction, and addictions aren't exactly the best thing to have. Now, this brings us to the voice of our 4-hour issue. I chose a song that barely anybody actually knows what it's about, so I can interpret it however I want. So I interpret it as either drug addiction or escaping reality in some other way. Especially the third verse, which is what we will hear today. The line, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device," relates to what Wade said about his computer, where he chose to be quite self-destructive by locking himself away from society with his computer and nobody else.
Mirrors on the ceiling, they pink champagne on ice, and she said, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device." And in the master's chambers, they gathered for their feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't